Hey, happy Friday, everyone. Today is our final episode of season 1 of You Need to Hear This, which has been pretty darn great. It's been really fun to be able to interview people in different areas of wellness, different experts. It's been just an incredible experience. I started it because I just thought, well, there are a lot of experts that have some interesting things to say, and so it's been a huge privilege for me to be able to bring them to you and engage in conversation and build community. So thank you for watching my Friday show. I laugh when I say that because I'm like, it's a show, but it's been a lot of fun. So my best friend Teresa will be on any second now. And you know what? I'll be honest. I am really nervous, and I'm already feeling a vulnerability hangover. So Teresa is about to join us, but that's okay. That means it's good. That means this is stuff that needs to be said. So here we go. Thank you for the hearts, you guys.
Hi.
Hi. I'm like, my eyes are like, well, I'm like already tearing. Like, why? I'm just nervous, and I'm never nervous to speak.
You were born to speak. How do I start this?
I've got lots of words.
Yeah.
So, Teresa, hello, best friend. Good morning.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. Let me take my shoes off and get comfortable. I'm wearing shoes today.
We're both wearing ruffly white. That's fun.
Oh, we didn't even plan that.
No, we didn't. So Teresa's my best friend who lives in Denver, Colorado, and with her 6 children, or one is an adult now, 5.
It's
and
weird.
It is weird. And is an author, 4-time author and speaker, and just one of the kindest humans who's ever lived on planet Earth. So, Teresa, you're moderating today. I don't know why I'm like
I
sweating.
am. Well,
Okay.
You know what? I had to get a towel and wipe too. I came from one podcast interview to this, and I feel like this is just such a big deal, Keish. This, I don't know. This is a really big day for you, sharing this publicly, and it's a beautiful story, and I'm really proud of you.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks. Okay. Well, I'll
Okay,
let you
so
be in charge. I'll let you dance. Lead.
Since I'm moderating, I get to do this. Okay. So, Kishi, where do you want to start? Do you want to start in Japan, Monterey, Texas? What do you want to start topically, or?
Well, let's start with fear. So
digging in.
Frame this is fear has been, I'm an only child, and I am an extrovert. And so it's a weird combination. When you meet only children, like adults, it's like a weird conversation you have where you're like, I am good by myself. I need my alone time, but like I can't have too much because I need people, because I'm an extreme extrovert. So one thing I would say has been my constant companion is fear. And I know that's not ideal. It's definitely not ideal to me. But just based on my life story and circumstances, fear has always been present in my story. And so when we talk about, when you say like, do you want to start in Japan or Monterey? So everyone, most people know I'm a military spouse and we've lived all over. I would say that before all of that, I've always had balanced being extremely extroverted and extremely joyful. And
life of the party.
Yeah.
Like truly, you want to go to any event with Keisha because she's the fun one.
And extra, over the top, I'm not going to even deny it. You're going to have so much fun if you come to my party, because I will make sure you have fun. So, so extremely joyful and extremely anxious and fearful at the same time. And it's really hard if you don't feel that. It's hard to understand how anyone can have those two emotions. And it would make you think that I'm extreme high and low. Actually, probably more in the middle, but I can feel those. There's a duality at any moment in time that those things exist in me. And so, and since early childhood, and I think I've been alone with that for a long time, which means I've kind of nursed it like a sibling, if that makes any sense at all. Like Fear and Keisha have been together. So even in college, like I feel like I've always been teased for being fearful. And I don't think what I didn't have the words to articulate is, oh, I'm anxious. And there are reasons for it. There's a root to it, which is a conversation for another day. But I've had an anxiety disorder since I was a child, and it wasn't diagnosed. I've known it all of my life, but it wasn't actually diagnosed until I lived in Japan and went to see somebody on base. And it was like finally somebody going, yeah, that's you, textbook anxiety.
Yeah, putting
And
a word to what you're feeling.
it was just like, oh, I'm not crazy. So there's that side of it. But so fear has always been something I've struggled with. And the root of fear for me has always been being left alone, or abandonment, or even death. Like if I'm being really honest, death has been a huge fear of mine. And part of someone who has an anxiety disorder as strong as mine, that's a really normal anxiety. And so I think and that theme has played over and over in my life. And I think if we look at our lives, we see, oh, there's a theme with your personal struggle. You will see it repeated again and again over the course of your life. And I think that's God's way of showing you, of illuminating things. So when I moved to Texas, married my husband, we moved to Japan, which you remember was like me living my best life. It was the best time of my life. And then we were there in 2011, and it was the earthquake, nuclear disaster, and tsunami. And so
just one after another, just bam,
yes,
bam, bam.
Yep, like insane, time period. And so I have a handful of irrational fears, and I own them, and earthquakes are one of them, which is funny because we're from Seattle. But this one was a 9.1 or 9.2, and by the time it got to where we were, it was a 7.1. And I mean, I can in technicolor detail remember every single thing I felt in that 5-minute earthquake. It was 5 minutes.
That's a long earthquake.
Yeah, a 30-second earthquake feels like 5 minutes. So, and the terror that ensued and what broke out in it's a whole nother story of like everything.
Well, I remember you calling me, and you were at school, and they obviously let all the kids go home, and you called me. You're like, I need to get home. Get me home. And Ben and I were both home. I don't remember what time of day it was, but we were both home, and we went into Google Maps, and I don't know how feasible, but somehow we were like, okay, turn on this street, go this way. Yeah. And we got you home so you didn't get into a street that was filled with water or whatever.
Like we had no idea where the tsunami was going to hit. We had like all the train, everything was stopped. Like it was crazy. So that was probably, I do remember that was the first moment in my life. I remember my uncle had called me through Skype, and he said, we're watching the screen and we're seeing the tsunami, and that was in Sendai. And nobody could really tell at that point like how far away I was from the epicenter, and I remember my uncle calling me, and he's a very stable person, and he was really emotional in his voice because I hadn't seen the images yet, and he was like, Keisha, I need you to get to high ground now. And he was like, how close are you to the water? And like, it's a Navy base, we're on the water. And so anyways, I remember him say, go now, and then the phone disconnected. And I remember being frozen. People are driving around base like crazy, and people are freaking out, and the military police don't know what to do. Nobody knows what to do. And so I remember praying in that moment, going, God, it makes me emotional even to say it. I don't know how to swim. Like if the tsunami comes here, like, I think, is this it? Like, is this the moment? I said, if it is, just make it happen quickly. Like, I remember feeling so much fear that, like, it was like the only reality. Like, when you're afraid of things, it's a little bit of reality and it just nags at you. But then there's reality. But this fear was it. It was like, oh, this could be it. Yeah. And I just remember going, okay, Lord, I don't know what to do. And I was just frozen. And so, anyways, here I am. You know, it all worked out. It was one of the most important experiences of my life because, you know, you look at like I remember the Katrina happened, and I think before that, and contrasting what the images you saw in New Orleans, and just sort of people losing their minds and going crazy, and in Japan, where there was so much order and so much, like, you know, like lines out of the grocery store at our local grocery store, people just taking just enough food for today for their family, just
I
enough.
remember you saying that. Yeah.
Because the person behind, there was the social responsibility. If there's a human behind me,
Mm-hmm.
and I can't just hoard because I have a responsibility. That changed me. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that changed me as a human. So, I mean, there was so much beauty that came from that. But I think that was like the first time that God, I really do believe that God was like, we're going to start dealing with this fear.
Mm-hmm.
Because your fear that overwhelms you, like here I was in a circumstance that was life or death, and it turned out that I was okay. Other people weren't, but like dealing with the survivor guilt, dealing with you know, why me? Like, why am I okay? And yeah, yeah. I mean, it very difficult. So then we move. Everything is fine. I love Japan. It was great. And then we moved to Monterey, and it was time to like start getting ready to have a baby or prepare to have a baby. And you know, every woman who's watching this who got pregnant and has had a child knows that the first thing that happens after, you know, a couple months or 6 months or whatever of trying is, oh my God, what if I can't have a baby? And then a new fear is born. And so you go through that.
Yeah, what if I lose that baby?
Yeah. And then the next thing is, what if I lose that baby? Yeah. You get pregnant, and then what if I lose it? And so, like, fear after fear after fear, or like, what if something's wrong with that baby? And so we go through, you know, fast forward and say we go through several years of infertility and of being told, like, you're never going to conceive naturally. Like, I remember the doctor saying that it's not going to happen for you, as if he were God, as if he knew anything. And just like the devastation, and you and I walking through that, like, just, I was depressed. And I remember I unfriended everyone, like almost everyone on Facebook. And I was just like, I hate everybody. I just want, like, I hate everybody.
Well, and it was the time, it was a season in our lives too, where all of our friends were pregnant.
Yep.
And I had just had our, you know, blondies and then started to adopt, but I felt guilt not recognizing that infertility was such a huge issue. I had no idea at the time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I remember, like, conversations. I remember you saying to me, like, how do I help you? And I didn't know. I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't know how to tell you, how to encourage me. I didn't know, but like, in retrospect, you and I know now, like, we talk about it now, that there is no way for you or I to help like, we can't fix the problem. All we can do is say, I see you. This sucks. I'm
standing with you.
Yeah, I'm with you. You want me to punch somebody in the face? I will punch them in the face for you. Like,
that's what Casey just said. She was like, I'm going to punch that doctor in the face.
Yeah.
Thanks, Case.
Of course she did. One of my longest friends. Of course she knows. You know, like, that's what we need, is we just need people in the trenches. And I think in that season I learned that I don't need any colloquialisms. I don't need any spiritual platitudes. People bombarded me with crazy things that they say well-meaning, like, if you just pray harder, if you just give it to God, I know, I believe in my soul you're gonna have a baby. I just believe it. I am praying on. People would say these things, and I'd be like, I would get so angry. And I finally got the courage to start telling people, like, hey, listen, you are God. You don't know the truth. You don't know what's gonna happen. And what if the story of my life is that I didn't have children? You don't get to tell me what the story is. What if this was God's best? I didn't conceive children, and that's the way this was going to go. And every time you say I need to do this, and this, it ends up, like, plaguing me with guilt and shame, and, like, stop doing it. Stop putting that on me.
Yeah, that's hard. I mean, when our oldest son, left us for 6 months, I spoke at an event, and afterward a woman came up to me. She was like, while you were speaking, God told me that he will come back in 4 months. And I was like, okay, I appreciate that. But he didn't. Like, I guess God didn't tell you that. So we need to be really, really careful when we feel like God is speaking to us and to share something with someone else, that it's actually from him. And how we know that, honestly, I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's a really dangerous thing to say.
I think, discernment with our words.
5 years of infertility, miscarriage. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
It's hard.
It is so painful. I think this moment of not being able to conceive and just feeling like, what's wrong with me as a woman? What's wrong with me as a human? Why not me? I want to be a mom so bad. And then the getting pregnant. We actually did get pregnant, and saw that baby's heartbeat and all the things, and then a few weeks later lost that baby. And
didn't you find out on Thanksgiving and then that you're pregnant?
Yep.
And then found out on Christmas Eve that
just a few days before.
Exactly.
Yeah, good memory. And then the worst part, it was a missed miscarriage, which meant my body believed that it was pregnant and just hung on and wouldn't I couldn't, like, miscarry. I couldn't pass this baby. So I ended up going through a full first trimester, sick as a dog, because again, my body was like, okay, throw up, you're sick. And you're exhausted. And so I went through the full first trimester, and then finally decided, at that time I was an academic coach working at the district level for a school district, presenting to the board, presenting to staff. And in
case you guys don't know, Keisha is very high level on a lot of areas. She doesn't talk about that whole area of her life, but she's amazing.
You're generous.
A lot of degrees.
You're generous. So I just remember trying to remember the content I was supposed to convey to these important people, teachers, whomever. And then I remember all I could think about was, what if I start bleeding now? And it was consuming me. So I finally scheduled a TNC, and the minute I did, it was just like, just peace washed over me. Just sadness and grief. And then about 2 months later, I got pregnant again. So 2 first trimesters back to back. So fun. And I remember being paralyzed with fear that I was going to lose this baby. So much that it killed me every day. I was just in tension and stress and anxiety. And I ended up having these weird pains, ended up at the ER. They did a sonogram. What is it?
Ultrasound.
There it is, ultrasound on me. And the tech was just a little snotty. And I was like, how's my baby? And I was probably really dramatic. And she was like, fine, everything's fine. Just the way she talked to me, it was super condescending. But I was grateful in retrospect, because there was something that clicked in the way she was like, what are you freaking out over? She's probably 29. And so it was like, didn't get it. But yeah. But it was, I just realized, what am I freaking out over? There is a living human inside of my body right now, which is exactly what I've wanted and prayed for. And so I just decided this was another moment, just like my Japan moment, where I was like, God, okay, if this is it, I let go. So I took my greatest fear. And in that moment, I was like, for as long as this child is in my body, I will love you and give you the warmest, happiest home that I can offer you. Because I can't control the days of your life. I can't. Yeah. And so if you are inside of me, I will give you a sweet home. It just was the most important moment of my life. And then I let go, and the rest of the pregnancy was great. And Jackson came, and he's upstairs. He's 5.5 years old. He's the joy of our life. So I think that was that second moment of fear where it was like, you make a decision right now with what you're going to do with this. Are you going to let it kill you, or are you going to stand up? And I'm so glad. So that's that place. And then the next one
so fast forward, what happened next, basically? Because there was a huge loss that happened next. And thankfully it's not Jackson. We all know he's upstairs right now.
He is here. He's good. So we moved to Texas again for the second time, and back to Corpus Christi. And I'm 800 years pregnant, and
in hot Corpus
Yeah,
Christi.
yeah. And
The air is made of sand.
yes, and so yes, it is. That's so funny. And so I being the like the crunchy girl I am, and I say this, and I'm a little scared to say this because I'm sure uh, somebody watching or somebody's person may be in this profession, and it's very. I haven't shared the story publicly. This is really hard, so bear with me as I fumble through this. But this is maybe the most important moment of my life. I have Jackson at the hospital. Like everything well, it doesn't go according to plan, but it happens. We have a C-section. By the grace of God, when you look at maternal fetal rates for Black women and C-section rates for Black women, I am poster child. I am textbook. All of those things, and that was really sad. But he came. He's alive. He's well. We survived. So let's see, it was, I have migraines, hormone migraines a couple times. You have them all the time. I have them a handful of times a year, and they're horrible, but
That's horrible.
they're manageable. And so when you are pregnant, a lot of times migraine sufferers don't have them, and then they come back right after. So I was having them constantly, but I was also breastfeeding, and I knew nothing about breastfeeding. So I'm a new mom. I'm struggling to breastfeed. You can't take the medication. I think I'm going to white knuckle it. Well, it was a terrible decision because I ended up in the ER a couple times for these migraines that were out of control. So I decided to go to a chiropractor because I'd always gone to a chiropractor and for migraine help. And I found one. I remember going to him. I remember having something in my gut saying, I don't like his technique. Something just feels off to me. But like many women typically do, they push that down, and they silence that voice.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody in Corpus Christi loves this person. He's the best. He's such a good man. He goes to this church. He's the nicest guy in the world. I mean, everyone is like over the top about him. So I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna trust everyone else's voice instead of my own. And so I see him a couple times. And before I'm pregnant, then afterwards, I've got these migraines. I see him. He adjusts my neck. It hurt so bad. It caused me incredible pain. And so I went home and I called him and said, I don't feel right. And he's like, come back. So the next day I go back with Jackson. And do you remember, moms, the very first time you took your child in a like the little bucket?
Carrier.
Yep.
The carrier.
Yep,
Bucket?
carrier.
You just call it a bucket?
Yeah. That was a bucket. You put the kid in. And you put him in the car yourself the first time. Remember, we're like only like 2 weeks, 3 weeks after having a baby. And you get in the car alone. I mean, I just remember going, I'm too afraid. I don't want to drive with that.
Don't crash.
That thing in the back. And so it was my first outing. I had a migraine again. And I said to my husband, I was like, I'm going to go. I can do this. I'm a big girl. I'm going to have my first big outing with Jackson.
Yeah.
So I go, I bring him in to the chiropractor. I lay on the table. He adjusts my neck. I'll fast forward through this. And the next thing I know, the room is spinning as if I were on the teacups at Disneyland. I mean, it's spinning so fast. And I could talk at that point. And I'm like, why is the room spinning? Why is the room spinning? And I felt like, do you remember the scene in Wizard of Oz when they throw water on the witch and she melts? Yeah. I felt like I was melting. I felt like through the table I was melting. And
everything flipped upside down too, didn't it?
Everything flipped upside down. And so I mean, my vestibular system, everything is like going crazy. I could talk and then I couldn't. And the next thing I remember is I'm on the floor and I'm vomiting profusely. And I've lost control of my bladder and my bowels, and everything is upside down. And
meanwhile, Jackson starts crying.
Yep, Jackson's crying, and the chiropractor is sobbing hysterically, screaming hysterically. Everyone from the lobby has come, and they're all watching, and they're all standing around, and they're just watching me. And I didn't realize that I was having a stroke, that he adjusted my neck, and he caused a stroke. And it tore my left vertebral artery. So you have an artery, there's 3 layers. When he adjusted it with a high velocity adjustment, which is the standard name for the adjustment, it caused a tear in the middle, the 3rd layer. and that caused a blood clot that went to my cerebellum. And he didn't recognize it. He knew something was happening, but he didn't know. And so it was bad. Nobody called 911. And in a stroke, there's PSAs, the acronym FAST.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I had all the signs, and he didn't recognize it. Nobody did, and nobody called. And he called my husband and he said, you should come. Keisha, I think her migraine's really bad. You should come and maybe bring her medicine. Well, my mom had the other car. She was visiting. She was at the grocery store. Dave's like, oh, I can't get there. So he gets there within an hour. And you've got like 3 hours to get a very critical medication. Long story short, a lot of bad things happened in that time. My son's screaming, and I see somebody, mind you, inverted, I see somebody take him away. And here's the crazy thing about motherhood. This is, again, like one of those first lessons that I'll never forget till the day I die, is all I cared about was my son. Like, somebody took my baby and I went into white hot panic mode. Like, someone took my child. I don't know who took my child. Oh my God, that's my baby. That's my baby. And so I remember saying, baby, baby. And all I could say was, bah, bah, bah. And a couple doors down from the chiropractor was an ambulance station, like a paramedic station. And somebody finally had the wherewithal to walk to the door and say, we need help. And they came over. And because I don't understand if this is a Texas thing or I don't know, because they weren't dispatched by a phone call, they could not take me to the hospital. So they took all sorts of time, and they looked at me, and and then finally they called 911, and eventually somebody got there, and eventually they took me, and my husband got there, and he took one look at me, and he just tore into him. He was like, are you out of your freaking minds? And so I got to the hospital. They admitted me for a migraine, and I sat and waited for a long time. And so
I remember you calling me. You had some words by then, more than just noises.
I think that was the next day.
But was it the next day? But I remember thinking something is seriously not right. Like,
I think
nothing made sense. Oh, that's what it was. You texted me.
I texted you in the hospital.
Yeah.
A couple days later.
You texted me, and I was like, none of this makes sense at all. It's like when a kid picks up your phone and just pushes random words that pop up as suggestions.
That's right. So I think, so I'll, fast forward through the hospital in Corpus. It was awful. Like, it was terrible. They couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. They did all the tests or whatever. Now 24 hours has happened, and I have still nobody's given me blood thinners. Like, the fact that I haven't had 10 more strokes is incredible. And so the doctor did say something about this it just doesn't feel right. And so because of her persistence, she just had this sick feeling. She said, the only thing I can do for you is I'm going to give you one more like CT scan. I'm going to give you dye. That's where they did. And that's where they found the tear. So she knew I'd had a stroke. And so, come to find out, her sister was young and had a stroke too from an incident. And so I think that like, because she had that experience, she didn't send me home with migraine medication so that I could just go home and literally die, like in my sleep or something. So it is an absolute act of God. They decided they couldn't, this was a stroke hospital, and they couldn't handle it. So they were going to airlift me to San Antonio, a few hours away. But a lightning storm broke out or started. So the paramedics took me. We drove there. Thank God my mom was there. She had Jackson. Jackson was like 2 weeks old. And so my mom was like with him. Dave was with me. And then I was hospitalized in San Antonio for a week. And that's when I texted you like gibberish. And you were like,
yes. Yeah.
So that is basically the stroke story. And what happened, after was, about a year of recovery I left with a walker. I couldn't stand, walk. My speech.
You weren't allowed to carry your baby around.
Yeah. For a really, really long time.
Yeah. So, and remind me, how long were you in the hospital again?
7 days. I was there for 7 days.
Okay.
And I will say this about my husband. All I cared about was breastfeeding. I mean, I could barely talk normally. And all I cared about was breastfeeding. And Dave demanded that just when we talk about, I mean, doctors are here. I appreciate them so much. One of the things that has pushed me to go into wellness is because I'm not a doctor. I'm the first one to say that. Don't take medical advice from me. I'm just someone who is a student, who's trying to learn. But my whole body, like I want to be looked at as a whole, not just as
Mhm.
parts. And so here's this new mother, and I want to breastfeed. And Dave had to fight to get them to just go down the hall to get a pump from
Pump.
the
Yeah.
maternity ward. Like he had to fight for it. And that, you know, because part of, there's a mental health component to people who have, you know, gone through trauma and a stroke in particular. And so for my own mental health, it was critical that I did something that was care
Mhm.
for my child that I just had 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So I wasn't able to because I couldn't move. I didn't have like use of one side. And so Dave set his alarm every 3 or 4 hours for 7 days, 24 hours a day. And he pumped me on both sides so that I could keep my milk. Like my husband did that every 4 hours, which whenever he drives me crazy and I'm like, oh, this brother is driving me nuts, I'm like, I'm still in. I come back because I'm like, he did that for me. And that's real love. That's love. That's
I
so,
mean, how many guys would do that, truly? And not even that they wouldn't be willing to. I think a lot of our guys would, but really to have the conscious wherewithal to fight for that, knowing that that was so important to you, rather than just going the easy way. No, he fought for what you wanted and he made it happen.
yeah, he did. So yeah, the rest of the story was, I mean, if you could believe it, it got worse. And I won't tell all of, I mean, I won't go into all of it, but it got significantly worse when I got home. And I now had postpartum depression, and I now had PTSD, and
Mm-hmm.
I now had to learn how to do all the things. My short-term memory gone. You could say something, I could hear it, and then seconds later, I don't remember what you said. I'm struggling to put words together. I'm not able to walk around my home. I mean, the fight we had to have this baby, we fought
Mm-hmm.
so damn hard. And this was my dream to have a child. And you're telling me now motherhood is going to be, somebody has to bring me my child because I can't walk and I can't do anything for myself. And so all of a sudden, I don't even feel like a human again. I don't even feel, I don't feel like a mother. This is not what I asked for, God. This is not what I told you I wanted. And
Yeah.
so that first year of motherhood was not what I wanted. It was marred with depression, marred with anxiety. Um, I There were days I didn't want to live. Like I just felt so hopeless. And
And you really
again,
didn't leave the house much at all.
oh no,
Like even when you could, when your body was working more proper, I don't know,
yeah, which happened quickly.
yeah.
Yep,
You still, like, you were so freaked out to get in the car to go
yep.
anywhere, especially anywhere by yourself.
Yep. So Dave would have to go back to work, and he would go fly in Corpus because he was a flight teacher, flight school, whatever for the Navy, um, and um, and so I would be home by myself with Jackson, and I'd have to go to the grocery store. Well, even for that, okay. So because I'm young, or was young, I was 35, 6 when it happened, and healthy and fit, and my body healed very, very quickly from the stroke. Just, I went to, mind you, 5 days a week. I went to occupational therapy, speech therapy, and physical therapy almost every day. I had 11 doctor's appointments from Monday through Friday, getting my PT, INR checked, my blood checked. Life was not normal. And so,
Yeah.
and I had to be driven to those things, whatever. So finally, as my body started healing pretty quickly, thank you, Jesus, and I could walk pretty quickly, my goal, and mind you, I always think about, like, I have run many, many, many half marathons. That's my hobby. It's my passion. It hasn't come back yet, and there's some trauma there, and I'm going to at some point. But my goal was to be able to walk to my mailbox. And I remember that being my highest goal. God, if I could walk alone to the mailbox, that would be the greatest thing that could happen to me. And so as things got better, Dave goes back to work. I've got to clean the house, get the groceries, take care of this child. And I remember having what I'm calling, I'm just going to clinically name it, I'm all of a sudden a doctor, situational agoraphobia. I became obsessed with the fact that somebody could do something to you in a second and it would end your life. It never occurred to me. I was always afraid of death, but like cancer and whatever, like somebody could hurt you, even if they didn't intend to, and it could take your life. And so now I was afraid of everything and everyone. I could not go to the store. I couldn't leave the house. I couldn't open the door. And when I finally was like, I have to go to the grocery store. I remember being like, because I was on medication so that I didn't have a stroke again. And so I was every day I was preoccupied with having a stroke. And so I would drive with all the windows down because if I had a stroke and I crashed, I needed Jackson to be able to breathe. When I had a plan, I had a death plan for everything. When I put the groceries in the car, I put the baby in, I opened all the doors, I put the baby in, because if I have a stroke right now, I need someone to hear his cry. Like every single thing I ever did was preparation for my death and someone taking care. I needed to make sure Jackson was okay. And that's how I functioned for a really, really long time. And I didn't know that I needed help. And we didn't have we had very few friends there. We didn't have community until Holly showed up and came in my life. So we didn't have family. We're military family. Like nobody sat down and said, you need to get on medication. Sister, you need help. Nobody said that to me. And prior, I would have been like, I'm not a big medication person, but I needed it. I needed help because what I was experiencing was bigger than me. So yes, fear had taken over our lives in a way that almost cost me marriage. Like it really put a strain on marriage, put a strain on relationships. So that was the big event. And then we went through a lawsuit and we learned that in Texas there is a loophole that because all evidence points to this individual at fault, but because he didn't have insurance, which you don't have to in the state of Texas as a chiropractor,
Crazy.
there's a loophole. So I could win $100 million and not collect a thing. So long story short, my lawyer said to me, this isn't really lawyer advice, but I'm just going to tell you, you need to forgive him. And you need to keep going. You need to move on. You need to let it go. And I remember being like, no, I'm in the right. He took everything away from me. He took my life away from me. And then I sat down one day and I typed out a letter, like eight, like Times New Roman, 8 font, single space. It was 6 pages. And I basically wrote a catalog of what happened from the first moment, everything I remember, all the smells, everything in the hospital, everything it financially cost us, to like that first year, like everything I lost as a mother, everything that affected my marriage, my relationships. And then because I wanted him to know every single thing that happened to me. And then I told him, you need help. Like you need more training. Like you didn't recognize it. You went to school to learn how not to do this. You need more help. And then at the end they said, but by the grace of God, he chose that I should live. I'm alive. I'm not the same. I'm not the happy girl that I was. I definitely feel broken, but I am alive, and there's a reason for that. And so I just need to let you know that I let you go in peace, that I'm not angry with you anymore. You made a mistake. You didn't intend to. I just hope you do something with it, because you almost cost me my life, and we have to be responsible with what we do. And but I need you to know that I let you off the hook, and I pray hope and joy and freedom for you. I hope this doesn't destroy you like it's destroyed so much of me, but I think that I'm on the mend in terms of, I think God's going to help me. I think that things are going to be okay. Like I wrote this, I mailed it to him. It was the most significant moment of my life, putting that in the mailbox and going, I'm done. I think I'm okay.
So here's a question for you. How do you forgive someone that hasn't asked for forgiveness? I think a lot of us, I mean,
Yeah.
you know, whether it's a parent or a spouse or a friend or something like you, like a lot of us have had situations where the person either doesn't care or they maybe don't know the significance or, you know, as much as the pain that they have caused that just doesn't occur to them. Or they're not in our lives anymore, but there's residual effects. How do you do that? How do you get to that point?
I will say this, that there was no magical feeling. There was no, I'm ready to forgive you. Like, I still had curse words in my mind for him. I'm not held prisoner. I am angry as hell. I mean, if I saw him right now, I would be like, boy, you better walk away because I don't want to see your face. Like, it doesn't mean you're not angry. You're not hurt. You're not wounded. You're not mad. You don't want to curse someone out. Like, but that's just a passing feeling. Like, it doesn't control me. Like, I think unforgiveness is a prison that somebody sends you the parts. They send you a box with all the parts and you build it, and then you throw away the key if you choose. Like, you stay in it. You live in a prison. Like, there's like so much more to the story that, like I said, if only the stroke was the worst part. It's not even the half of it. And the relational suffering that we dealt with and the pain that people caused us, unbelievable. In our worst hour, unbelievable. And so some of these individuals have never asked for forgiveness, and I don't think they ever will. And I think some of them I harbor, like, I wish I could say just it all went away. For me, the chiropractor, it was actually the easiest one of all of them to forgive. It was the family members. It was that was the hardest. But for me, it was just like, I will not let you rob me of one more second. You've taken so much and you didn't even know, and you're off living your best life. Like, who knows what you did last night? You probably went to a football game. Like, and so I had to let him go. And so I think what you do is you just do it. You say the words. And somebody in that time taught me something I'll never forget. She said, when I am angry with someone, I have a Post-it on my computer and it says, I let you go in peace. And she says, I say it over and over and over like a chant about that person. So, Teresa, I let you go in peace. Teresa, I let you go in peace, until it just starts to get in from my head into my soul. And it's a practice that takes a long time. And so did I instantly forgive him when I wrote that letter? No. But what it did, it was me acknowledging my story. It was me putting words to what I suffered. I went through hell, and saying it out loud started to free me. It was a work. It was all about me. And whether he is ever held accountable, I mean, he's not going to be. He's still practicing. And that feels awful. And I lived in that town down the street from him for the next 2 years, terrified that I'd run into him. But that was part of the story. Like, sometimes things, like, that was the first time I learned that sometimes things just don't work out for you the way you want them to. And so you have a choice to make. And if they ask you for forgiveness or not, you have to decide, like, will you get power over me anymore? Do I want, like, my body? Like, do you know that anger and bitterness and resentment, unforgiveness can cause inflammation in your body, and an inflamed body creates a sick body. Like, it leads to sickness. No, thank you. You don't get to rob my future too. So I think how do you forgive? You just go, damn it, I matter. Maybe I'm angry with you, but I'm going to take something back for me because I don't want to be a prisoner of this. I want to be free. I want freedom. So I think that's how.
And I think the writing portion is a really huge one too, because that's not the first time you've written a letter. This is maybe the first time that you've sent it.
Yeah.
But there's been, there was a time, once upon a time, many years ago, where we wrote a ferry together, and you threw a letter out to sea because from a stupid boyfriend who
broke my heart,
just awful. And it's for, like, sometimes you need to do it for yourself. Whether that chiropractor read that letter or not does not matter.
Not at all.
It is completely encompasses you getting it out there and just letting it go. Whether you're throwing a letter off a ferry or throwing it into a mailbox.
That's true. That's so true.
So how this has really led you into a life of wellness, though. I mean, I don't know if, did you see my post this morning on
Yes.
Instagram? And I compared you to Seattle.
That was such a
I
good
mean,
analogy. You're such a writer.
but for those of you who missed it, Seattle, which is where we were both originally from, is built on old Seattle. So Seattle had a horrible fire in 1889, and they built the new city on top of the old. And their foundation, what they thought was destroyed, just continued to be part of the story. And that's really you, Quiche. I mean, you know, it refined you. It's messy and it's hard, but it's part of your story, and it's part of what's building you up now. So talk about how it's really changed your life holistically.
Well, so you know, I've always been super crunchy. Like I'm always, you know, I'm from Seattle. I cannot help it, and it's always been something I've been fascinated by. I always wanted to go to integrative nutrition. Like I always thought one day, like here's my teaching career and this is my love, but one day I think I'm going to also do this. And like you, I'm like I want to do this job and this job and this job. Like there's just so much I want to do in life. And so, but you know that like I feel like I have to have formal training and everything. I'm always mesmerized by people who get on Instagram and have like 100 million people following them, and like they have no education in what they do. They just have the confidence and the courage to do it. And so I'm always like, I need to go to school. I need a degree. But
but you're an educator, so that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I'm nerdy that way. So, very long story, very short is it's been 5 years since the stroke, and my life has been about recovering. While I within a year pretty much got back to normal, the only residual I have is and I'm not making this a joke, like I was pretty good at mental math. I can't see now, like my ability to see, it's definitely a struggle. And my short-term memory. I really struggle with my short-term memory. I also don't feel like I'm the same person. I feel like a lot of times like a ghost or a shell of me, which is funny because as I've met people, this is so sweet. I'll never forget my friend Becca. I remember saying, I wish you could meet, oh, this will make me cry. I wish you could meet old me. Because I was full of life and I was a lot of fun. I was a really, really fun, happy person. And I would have been a great friend to have. And Becca was like, are you kidding me? You're the most fun person I've ever met. Like, I don't think I can handle old you. And that meant, I'll never forget that. That meant the world to me. That while you feel like you're something inside, what you project is actually different. And when people love you, they see something totally different than what we think they see. Which is, thank God for that. But so I was, you know, these 5 years of healing, of therapy, of PTSD, like support and getting on medication and like dealing with my anxiety and the trauma, what happens to your brain, like your brain changes. And like, so this last 5 years has been about that. Also, we decided, well, I could have another baby. I think we're going to just adopt because my body had been through so much. I couldn't take anymore. And so that's when our beloved Evie, we always thought we would adopt, but it was just like, we woke up one day and I said, let's adopt. And my husband goes, okay. And we did. And 3 months later, our baby came. Like it was the craziest, fastest adoption story. And that's a whole nother thing. But
just letting you know, Kish, you have about 10 minutes.
Thank you. Yes. And so long story short, like, I have always loved wellness. I was a stay-at-home mom, and I just decided, I think I want to go back to school. I want to go to integrative nutrition. I want to learn about wellness. And as a teacher, the highest form of learning is to teach something. And so I thought, well, I'll get on Instagram. You know, I hated Instagram. I thought it was so dorky, and I thought I'm going to waste of time. And I was like, I'll write the things that I'm learning and I'll just share it. And even if only my mom's watching, like, that's fine. I'm just like sharing my learning. And it became a thing where at that moment, there was a lot of things I had my head around. I loved clean products. I loved clean beauty. I'm the one that everyone goes, so what soap, dish soap should I buy? What this should I buy? So I had that. And then I decided to work for Beauty Counter because I really, really became concerned about Black women and their toxic load and I was like, I'll take this opportunity. Sure, I'll get a discount. Sure, I'll see where this goes. having no idea that I would actually have, like, I don't like selling anything to anyone. My boss at Nordstrom's one time told me I was the worst because I hate selling things. I hate pushing things on people, but I am the person that's like, I have a show you have to watch. I'm like the person that you come to, like, you want to know what jeans you're gonna buy? Let me tell you. So
Yep, that's you for sure.
yes, as long as I don't have personal like gain in it, like I'm always like, I'll tell everybody everything I think. But this was, I had an opportunity to do, I was living in DC. I had an opportunity to do advocacy work, to like, to sit down in a congressman's office and say, let me speak up for Black women and our toxic load and why we need to change laws. And like, I had all these opportunities now with Beauty Counter, which was amazing. And then I was going back to school, and I just decided, like, I think that this is going to be my thing, that I think I'm supposed to be teaching about wellness, and I don't even know how to like even put a caption on Instagram. So I learned from, you know, the ground up, because I'm not like 20. I didn't know these things. And I volunteer with a military organization that supports military spouses, which is a big passion of mine. And they connected me with Michelle Obama, and Michelle Obama put me March of last year. Yeah, 19.
I think it was last year.
Yep, for Women's History Month, she posted about me with a picture of me and my kids, and talked about my work at Green.and.well Beauty, is what I used to be called, and, you know, focusing on toxic load of Black women. I barely knew what I was doing. My feed was so dumb. Like, because I knew nothing. Not that your Instagram has to be perfect, because mine isn't, and I actually want it to stay that way. But I just knew nothing. And so what happened, and this is another theme of my life, is I really do think I was thrust in a spotlight. I had 3 people. I went from like 500 people following me to 3,500 people following me. Like, in overnight, it overwhelmed me. I knew nothing. I had,
and
like,
tell how many people messaged you.
Oh, I had like 1,000 DMs. I was having like panic attacks. It was just, everyone wanted to know. People were like, tell me about your adoption. Where did you get your baby? What do you do? How do I work with you? Can you do this? Can you push this product? And all of us overnight, I was like, oh my gosh. Like, I just wasn't ready for it. But how many times do things happen when we're ready? Never. Like, I'm going to have a baby when we're financially, no, like nothing ever. Like, there's never a perfect time for anything. I was thrust. I look back at my feed and I laugh, and I think about the content I was producing then. And now I feel like, oh no, I actually am a creator of content. No, this is my passion. Oh, okay. And I'm figuring it out as I go, and wanting desperately, as a biracial woman, I am Hispanic, white, and Black, wanting to represent all parts of my life. I'm a military spouse. I'm an adoptive mom. I am a very passionate advocate for advocacy, or ingredient transparency in our food and our product. I'm a fighter. I'm also someone who believes that Black Lives Matter, and I'm someone who loves God, and I'm someone who loves all people, no matter what your race, who you love. Like, you cannot put me in a box. You cannot say, oh, she's this or she's that. Like, I am a lover of our armed forces. Being a part of the military has been such a gift, but you better believe I am very politically active, and I believe that human rights matter, and I will fight for anybody. And being someone who's a person of color and understanding the long suffering story of persecution and systemic racism, I will fight for anybody who doesn't get human rights. I don't care who you are. I will fight for you. So, and what that means is that I don't fit into clubs. So on Instagram, there are times, we talked about it this morning, I'm very scared that white women will come after me and be like, there's no such thing as systemic racism, or you can't be a Christian and also belong to this political party, because people can be mean on the internet. And then sometimes I worry that Black women are going to be like, well, okay, you got to pick sides. You got to be Black and not. Like, I worry about, like, I have my own issues with racial identity and wanting so much to please everybody, because I've got different parts of me, and that's something I'm working through. And going, I don't care what anyone thinks of me. This is me. I'm singing my song. I'm staying in my lane. I'm telling my story. I'm going to just live my truth, because I am all parts. You cannot. I am not one thing. I'm not a monolith, and neither are you. We can, and in this time, we can be a lot of different things. We can vote this way, but go, I'm not okay with this.
Yeah.
I think I need to pivot right now. I
Mhm.
can belong to this faith practice and also honor yours. I can respect you. I I don't know. I think that's what 41 is teaching me. Like, you want to put me in a box? Heck no. I'm tired of that. Like, this is who I am. If you don't like it, I'm sure there's a space on the internet for you. But this is a space where I want everyone to be included, where I don't care if we don't have the same values, like exactly. Um, you can be safe here and we can engage in dialogue and you can learn something from a different vantage point. So
Mhm.
that's what I'm trying to do. Not perfectly, but
Well, what's that? I wrote it down and I even posted it a couple weeks ago. A quote that you had said, another, I think when you were talking about when my studies came out, and you were talking about how, I'm going to butcher it because you said it so eloquently, but you can have a different mind frame and still, like, you can be diverse in what you think and still be like-hearted.
yeah, it was
Do you
something
remember
like
what
that.
you
Yeah,
said?
yeah.
Like, I think it's okay. That's what diversity is supposed to be. It's not just, skin tone. It
Yeah,
is, you should have surround yourself by people that think differently, believe differently, um, are different socioeconomic status. That is okay. That they've,
absolutely.
you
Yes,
know,
absolutely. I think what it is to be to have your okay. What the stroke and everything, it flipped everything I ever knew on its head. I thought if I was a good girl, God would protect me. My biggest fear has been death, and I have
mhm,
faced it multiple times. And so, what do you do when you face your greatest fear and then you come out the other side? I'm not the same. It really affected me. And so, what I've learned from this is everything I thought I knew, maybe I didn't know. And I think
mhm,
suffering and trauma will do that to you. So, the point is, to be flexible in your thinking, to have your brain and your heart be soft. Maybe you
mhm,
don't know everything. Maybe somebody else's story is true and so is yours. But maybe there's a place where we can listen and learn. And I can believe what I believe and you can believe, like, there's a place for all of us. Like, I
mhm,
think that's what my life is teaching me, is how to sit with people in long suffering. I mean, if you're suffering, like, I feel like I've learned, I feel like God always brings me people who are in the midst of chaos because I'm getting pretty good at going, I'll sit with you, sis. I
yeah,
won't push you out. I'm not someone who's like, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. I'm like, I see you. I will tell you truth. I will not allow you to live in lies, but I will sit with you.
yeah,
But it's a combination of that and going, I just also want to be a part of, I want a world where so many opposites can exist at the same time and we don't have to feel so damn angry all the time. We don't have to feel like we're fighting for our view. We can listen to other views and let our hearts grow bigger and our minds grow bigger. That's
mhm,
what I want. And not everyone wants that, and that's fine. I am just on a journey to learn how to do that because this is my one shot at life.
mhm,
And I recognize how precious it is. And you and I both know, having adopted children, that's a whole other story of pain and hardship.
yeah,
Having a black, dark skinned daughter is a whole other story of how the world perceives her. Being biracial, having a white husband, like having a bio, so many themes in my story. And all I'm learning is that I don't know a lot, but I want to tread lightly and I don't want to let fear control me because I can't control what happens in my life. I really don't get
mhm,
to control. And while I now use fear, I look at it and I go, I see you. When I'm starting to feel fearful, I acknowledge it. It's like a warning sign in my head. It's like this like beat going, something's off. And I look at it and I acknowledge it. You're here to show me something. What is it? What's the root? Am I jealous? Am I angry? Am I bitter? Am I feeling lonely? Am I hungry? Am I thirsty? What is it? And then I say, okay, I'm sending you on your way. You taught me
mhm,
what you needed. You showed me what I needed, and now you can go. So
yeah,
I think that's the story. Is I will never not be anxious. I will probably for the rest of my life, but I'm going to use it for my good.
yeah. So
And
before we
we have
officially,
30 seconds.
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just gonna say a quote real quick because it reminds me of you. Elizabeth Kubler Ross. The most beautiful people we have known are those who have known defeat, known suffering, known struggle, known loss, and have found their way out of the depths. These persons have an appreciation, a sensitivity, and an understanding of life that fills them with compassion, gentleness, and a deep, loving concern. Beautiful people do not just happen. And that's you, Kishi, and that's your story.
I love you.
I love you. I'm
You're the
proud
best. Thank you.
of you.
Thank you. Bye, guys. Have